Hello and welcome to The Bottom Line here on TVP World. This is where we unpack the main business and economic stories of the day. I'm your host, Marie Cato. That final stretch to secure the 18th package of EU sanctions against Russia is being held up by Slovakia. Prime Minister Robert Fico says that he's fighting for his country's energy security. But is he? Jan Kennedy tells us more in his report.
Slovakia's Prime Minister Robert Fico is once again blocking the EU's plans for a new 18th round of sanctions on Russia. Still, EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas is not giving up hope.
I must say that we were really close to reassure Slovakia. The Commission has delivered what they asked for. Now the ball is in Slovakia's court and we must get this deal done. It has been already 2 months.
The problem? Slovakia wants a promise that the EU's plan to stop using Russian energy by January 2028 won't disrupt its energy supply. And Prime Minister Fico says switching to other energy sources could hit Slovakia hard.
There will be a shortage of gas. Transit fees will be 2 or 3 times higher, and the price of this commodity will skyrocket. If the gas goes through several member states from the west to Slovakia, then transit fees will increase.
While Hungary hasn't officially blocked the sanctions, it's essentially in the same position. Despite receiving exemptions from the EU's plans to halt Russian energy supplies, both countries increased their reliance on discounted Russian gas pipeline deliveries from 57% in 2021 to 71% in 2024. But consumers haven't been the ones who benefited.
Slovakia and Hungary are struggling or not so keen to end reliance on Russian gas and oil. Like we mentioned, they purchase marginally discounted Russian gas, perhaps at about a 10% discount, and are not really reducing prices for the final consumer.
Levy says that the difference is pocketed by the intermediaries. To add insult to injury, both countries could phase out Russian gas as alternative supply routes exist, including an interconnector between Poland and Slovakia, which would be capable of covering the whole of the country's demand. Something similar happened with Russian oil, with experts pointing to the income of MOL, owner of refineries in Slovakia and Hungary, swelling by 30%.
So who is benefiting? Often it is government officials as well as companies, rather than actually seeing discounted prices for those consumers in Slovakia. And that can be seen that diesel and gasoline prices in Slovakia pre-tax remain at the same levels as their neighboring countries, if not slightly higher.
Some Slovakian politicians point to the example of the Czech Republic, which managed to successfully cut Russian energy imports without increasing prices.
The Czech Republic, a landlocked country, almost the same situation as us. They also did what they needed to. They also prepared refineries to be able to process oil other than Russian. They signed long-term contracts, both transit and supply, and today they have cheaper gas than us.
Last week, Unipetrol, the dominant player on the Czech market, announced that it has stopped refining Russian oil. Poland, meanwhile, replaced its Russian supply with deliveries from Saudi Arabia back in 2023.
So what's the crux of the problem? Is it political or is it economic? It's probably both, but the numbers are indisputable. Instead of decreasing reliance on Russian energy, Slovakia and Hungary have both increased their dependence after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. To explore the topic deeper, I am glad to welcome Svetomir Nikolov, energy and climate analyst at the Center for the Study of Democracy and co-author of a recent report on this topic. Hello, and thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts with your audience.
We're glad to have you with us. So I want to begin with the most recent development regarding Slovakia's objections to the 18th package of sanctions. It's their requirement of gas supply guarantees. Do tell us about that and get us up to speed. How far-reaching are these guarantees supposed to be?
First of all, we need to add some context. Slovakia's veto of the new European sanctions package against Russia and its request to renegotiate the European Commission's roadmap for phasing out Russian gas reflects a deeper issue. Slovakia remains significantly dependent on Russian natural gas, while the rest of the European Union has taken steps to reduce this dependency. So Slovakia is moving in the opposite direction. They want to save their contracts with Gazprom until 2034. Also, this is the case what's happening with Hungary. Just to give some statistics and data, by the end of 2024, Slovakia and Hungary together were importing approximately 70% of their pipeline gas from Russia. This is noticeable increase from 57% in 2021. So during the same period, the rest of the European Union reduced imports of Russian pipeline gas by more than 80%. This shows that Slovakia's reliance on Russian gas is not decreasing, but instead become even more, more important. But the reason why this is happening, it's not because of economic reasons. It's because of political will, and also we have to understand that Gazprom is a typical state-owned company in Russia. So, state-owned company means this is a political will. So, what Gazprom is doing is to offer discounts to Slovakia and Hungary and also their traders, which also these discounts are transferring into profits.
If I can just interrupt you there.
This is why all this is happening.
If I could just interrupt you there, I wanted to ask you, what would persuade Slovakia to actually diversify its natural gas supply? How can that actually happen?
Oh, it's really easy. First of all, our networks and our capacity in our transmission networks in Central and Eastern European Union are enough to secure all the imports and all the volumes of natural gas that we need. Also, we have the capacity to import LNG because we have these terminals in Kirk, Croatia. We also have the terminals in Greece, Revitusa and Alexandroupolis, and because of the contract between Bulgarian government and Turkey and between Bulgartransgaz, the Bulgarian gas operator and transmission network with Botash, we have also a capacity to import LNG coming from Turkey.
So you have all the resources.
Have enough capacity.
You have all the resources. So why won't Slovakia do that?
And also, we have also to say something which is important. The prices are going to be the same because the discounting the prices of natural gas coming from Russia, the people are not benefiting from them. They're transforming these discounts in profits. So the prices of LNG and the prices of the natural gas coming from Russia via the pipeline, via Turk Stream, are the same. So the only reason why Slovakia and Hungary and also the whole region, Bulgaria, Greece, Serbia, North Macedonia, and etc. are still importing a lot of Russian gas. And that's because the different traders and the different oligarchs in these state captures are making profits because of that. Also, the reason why this is happening is because the Russian networks are really strong, but also because they have the premium infrastructure working for them, and this infrastructure is TurkStream, because TurkStream has only one entry point, and this entry point is on the territory of Russian Federation. Also, the capacity of this pipeline is booked by Gazprom, 90%. So you're paying little taxes. In compare, of course, with the US LNG traders, because they have to pay the tax for each transmission network from Greece to Bulgaria to Serbia to Hungary to Slovakia.
So you've told us a little bit about the Slovak situation. Can you tell us a little bit about Hungary? How can they diversify their gas supply?
They can do all the diversification of natural gas with US LNG, but not only. They can secure different sources like coming from the Middle East or coming, from example, from different countries that are exporters of natural gas as Qatar and etc. But the most important thing is that the problem is not technical. The problem is not economical. The problem is the political will. We have to understand that all these discounts in the price are using to subsidize the state capture in these countries, and that's why they don't want to diversify. It's not because of technical and economical reason. They can diversify, but what's happening is that Russia is securing and also offering these discounts and offering these profits for these companies only to secure and only to get this money because they need this money. Russia, just to say that Turkish Stream has transported over 62 billion cubic meters of natural gas to Europe. This is resulting in around 22 billion euros in revenue for the Russian government, and I think this explains everything.
So you're basically saying that there are no issues with infrastructure. This has nothing to do with economic reasons. It is purely political.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to switch to the issue of oil. MOL, the Hungarian oil and gas company that operates 2 refineries, just to be clear for our viewers, one serves at the Hungarian market, the other one serves the Slovak market. It could bring more crude oil via the pipeline to Croatia, but it says that the Croatians want to squeeze. It wants to squeeze them with transit fees. Can you give us a little bit of details in terms of the situation over there?
Again, this is a political problem. It's not a technical, and another, this is the same case as the natural gas. You don't have an economical problem. The discount in the price and why Hungary and Slovakia are importing crude oil coming from Russia is because they can transform this discount into profits. Because if you look at the Eurostat data, you can find out that the crude oil and the petroleum products without taxes in Hungary and Slovakia are higher than the average in the European Union. So you can understand that the people are not benefiting from the cheap Russian oil and the cheap Russian gas. Also, that's why the economy situation in Hungary and Slovakia is not good. You can see what's happening with the forecasts about the GDP growth, also about the industrial production index, and etc.
Of course. And MOL also has started talks to modernize the so-called Odessa-Brody pipeline. And this pipeline connects the Druzhba pipeline, making it the easiest way to bring seaborne crude to both refineries in Slovakia and Hungary. MOL says that this way it could decouple from Russian oil by 2028 along the lines of EU expectations. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Hungary and Slovakia can phase out Russian crude oil next year, in the beginning of the next year. There's no technical, economical, and another problems with that. If we have a little bit bottlenecks in terms of trading with the US, this is not the case when we talk about the crude oil. There's a lot and enough crude oil in the world, and they have the transmission networks. They can use the crude oil pipeline TAL coming from Croatia. Also, each country in the European Union, because of the European law and regulations, need to have 3 months reserves of petroleum products for the population. So there's no risk in that. Again, this is only a political situation. It's only because they don't want to. It's not, the problem is not they cannot. And the people have to understand that.
So basically,
you can read all the reports. They're telling us that it's possible.
So basically, there's absolutely no reason why Robert Fico could not agree to this 18th package of sanctions against Russia. He could do that today, he could do that tomorrow. It's just a matter of political will.
If you want, just to give you one example, this was the same situation with Bulgaria and also with our refinery and Lukoil in Bulgaria. They're telling us that we cannot survive without Russian crude oil. There's no alternatives. Our refinery cannot work with non-Russian crude oil. The next day, we stopped the derogation. And until now, Bulgaria has no problems with the different crude oil coming from non-Russian origin. And our refinery is working and nothing happens. That's going to happen also in Slovakia and Hungary. There's no risks. The problem is, again, the political will of the state capturing these both countries.
And what about the Odessa-Brody pipeline? Is this some kind of smoke screen?
This is an interesting topic. I'm not really sure if this is going to happen, but again, the problem with the Black Sea is that you can always import from Kazakhstan or from Azerbaijan using shipments or different pipeline connections, new pipeline connection, we have to say that, or using a road coming from Russia, but you have to secure that you are not importing Russian natural resources. But again, the problem is, and the bottleneck is Bosphorus. This is the problem because the problem is coming from the Turkish side, and that's why they're investing and creating this project to create a new pipeline and create a new road to the Black Sea.
So what do you think is actually going to happen to this 18th package of sanctions if Slovakia, Robert Fico seems adamant that he doesn't want to budge on this. He has made allusions to the fact that the Repower EU roadmap is actually the crux of the problem. So this broader EU energy strategy is something that doesn't actually work for him. And obviously Hungary has similar feelings about it. What's going to happen?
I'm not really sure, by the way. This is a really interesting question, because we have to know that the national governments are really strong in the European politics, and we have to know that the European Commission it's not that strong enough, we think. But we have always to know that the European Commission and also the other governments have enough instruments to negotiate and to have a good position in that. The problem is that we already know the position of Robert Fico and also of Viktor Orban, and the problem is that maybe the European Commission is going to make a deal, and the problem is that maybe that the parameters and what we offer Slovakia it's not that good, and it's not that optimistic that we now think with our roadmap and our new EU sanctions package.
So the bottom line is that both countries, Hungary and Slovakia, are absolutely capable of weaning themselves off Russian energy. There are no technical obstacles to that. It is just a matter of will.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's a very clear-cut answer and conclusion to our conversation. Svetomir Nikolov, energy and climate analyst at the Center for the Study of Democracy. Thank you so much for our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.
And that concludes The Bottom Line for today. I was your host, Marie Cato. We bring you the best of regional business Monday to Friday at 5:10 CET on TVP World. And in the meantime, for the latest in regional business, follow us on X and on tvpworld.com. Goodbye.